So if you're a casual MMA fan and you've been looking at the UFC 329 fight card and saw the name Gable Steveson, you're probably wondering, who is this guy and why is everyone acting like he's the next big thing? So Gable Steveson is a very unique UFC prospect, and before signing with the UFC, he was already one of the most decorated wrestlers on the planet. He won Olympic gold, experimented with multiple sports, and dominated outside of UFC and MMA. And he even competed in 2 different combat sport promotions before finally making the jump to the official UFC Octagon. So here's everything you need to know about Gable Steveson before UFC 329. So let's start with where Gable became famous. Steveson wrestled at the University of Minnesota and quickly became one of the greatest heavyweight college wrestlers in NCAA history. He won multiple NCAA national championships, dominated Big Ten competition, and became known for something that's incredibly rare in heavyweight wrestling. He wasn't just strong, he was explosive and moved like someone 2 weight classes lighter. And that athleticism eventually earned him a spot on Team USA for the Tokyo Olympics. In one of the most dramatic Olympic wrestling finals ever, Steveson scored a last-second takedown in the closing seconds to win the Olympic gold medal in freestyle wrestling. And almost overnight, he became one of the biggest names in American wrestling history. And after winning Olympic gold, Steveson didn't immediately choose MMA. Instead, he explored just about every opportunity available. He even signed with the WWE and spent time training in their developmental system. He later tried something even crazier. He signed for the Buffalo Bills despite never playing college football. And obviously, the experiment didn't last, but it showed just how much confidence people had in his athletic ability. And eventually, Steveson decided his future was in combat sports. So Gable Steveson began competing professional MMA in 2025, and from the very beginning, he looked exactly how you'd expect an Olympic wrestler to look inside a cage, with elite takedowns and grappling. But what surprised people the most was his striking. Instead of simply wrestling opponents for decisions, Steveson finished all 3 of his professional MMA fights in the first round by knockout or TKO, building a perfect 3-0 record before signing with the UFC. And before joining the UFC, Steveson also competed in Dirty Boxing Championship, or called DBX. And Dirty Boxing combines boxing with limited clinch fighting and dirty boxing techniques, including elbows. So it creates a fast-paced rule set that rewards pressure and physicality. And they're also wearing MMA gloves, which are usually 4-ounce gloves. So it definitely produces a lot of finishes and really dangerous for a guy that has a handful of fights. So for someone with Stevenson's wrestling background, it was almost the perfect transition between amateur wrestling and mixed martial arts. So he won his Dirty Boxing debut by brutal early KO and continued building confidence while getting valuable striking experience before making the move to the UFC. But Dirty Boxing wasn't the only place he competed. In 2026, Steveson also signed with Real American Freestyle, or RAF, the professional wrestling league backed by wrestling legends. And designed to showcase elite freestyle wrestlers. I mean, they've had guys like Hamzat Chimaev wrestle for them, Colby Covington, Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, and Armin Sarukian's literally becoming a legend by the day there. I think he's like 5-0 at RAF. So at RAF 9, Steveson returned to his wrestling roots by facing former UFC heavyweight Alexander Romanov. Although he had begun his MMA career, Steveson later described at the event as a stepping stone that helped him prepare for the UFC, allowing him to sharpen his wrestling under live competition before entering the Octagon. So rather than jumping straight into the UFC after wrestling, he took a path that let him continue competing while steadily expanding his overall fight game. And the UFC clearly has interest in these types of prospects after how much they've been trying to build up Bo Nickel by putting him on UFC 300 and the freaking White House card. So imagine those same wrestling accolades, but with generational athleticism and heavyweight size. And that's why the UFC wanted Gable Steveson so bad. So now comes the biggest test of his career at UFC 329, the Conor McGregor card, so a huge opportunity for him. But Steveson makes his long-awaited UFC debut against Alicia Ellison on the prelims, and we, the fans, bullied him off the main card because he does not deserve that spot. You're not going to Bo Nickel us 2.0. But odds makers have made Steveson an overwhelming betting favorite, with many expecting him to continue his streak of early finishes. I mean, I've seen some lines being minus 3,000 for this guy, so the expectations could not be higher. And one more thing worth mentioning, Steveson hasn't been preparing alone or just with like any training camp. Leading in UFC 329, he spent much of his training camp working alongside former UFC heavyweight champion John Jones. And Johns even said that he's been Stevenson's primary training partner throughout the camp and believes he's looked exceptional ahead of his UFC debut. So when you're watching UFC 329 prelims, don't think of Gable Steveson as just another prospect. You're literally seeing an Olympic gold medalist, one of the greatest NCAA heavyweights ever, and someone who's not afraid and was willing to step in a dirty boxing competition where he could take elbows in 4-ounce gloves, and he can't wrestle, it's just pure stand-up. And ultimately, he's one of the UFC's biggest heavyweight prospects in years. So now, we'll finally find out if the hype translates inside the Octagon. So do you think Gable Steveson becomes a future UFC champion, or is the hype getting ahead of reality? Let me know down in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe for more UFC 329 coverage, and I'd really appreciate you guys, and God bless you all.